All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Spay Rod Adventures. I'm your host, Paul Watts. I got a cool one today for you. I got Marcus here, and I'm excited to talk about his business and what he has. And Marcus, correct me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but it's Roman Reels.
Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Marcus, thanks for coming on, man. I know we talked a little bit before we hit the record button, and I appreciate getting to know you a little bit there. How's your day going?
Good. Woke up this morning and a buddy of mine wanted me to go check the river for him because he's going to be doing some stuff tomorrow with some clients. So I didn't have a bunch of stuff to do, so I hopped in the truck and head out. It was 5 degrees in the canyon up in the Weber Canyon on the Weber River here in Utah.
Whoa.
Uh, and so we just checked the river and there's a bunch of slush running down it. So we went up a little higher. Um, just continued to go up and up and up and just to check the river to see kind of flows, conditions, stuff like that. There's a bunch of slush coming down it. It finally got to 11 degrees at one point in time. Uh,
Wow.
and then I went kind of this back way to a small little tributary. Ended up seeing about 300 deer this morning.
Wow.
Probably saw about 100 turkey.
Oh, cool.
I saw a bobcat for the first time in Utah. So that was pretty
Mm,
cool. So I was just walking up to the river to kind of peek over to see this tributary. There was a bobcat that just like jumped over the river and kind of took off. It was actually pretty neat.
that's cool. How big of a river is this, mile wise?
The Weber?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, it basically there's two reservoirs on it, so it's kind of divided into three different sections. There's the lower section which runs from Echo Reservoir down into where it meets the Ogden River, and then it flows out towards the Great Salt Lake. And then from Echo to Rockport Reservoir, again, it's called the Middle Weber. Uh, that was deemed navigable several years ago, and as long as you access it publicly, you can walk up and down it. So there's private property on both sides, but it was deemed navigable. But Utah Stream Coalition Access is fighting with some landowners because they just took access away on the upper part,
Mm,
which is Rockport Reservoir, and then the headwaters go up into the Uintas, and there's a tributary that there's another reservoir on. So it's a huge river. Um, so there's two main rivers that are pretty popular around the Salt Lake City area, which are the Weber and the Provo.
and what species are you guys targeting?
So the Weber has a lot of brown trout in the middle section. The lower section has some Bonneville cutthroat in it.
Oh,
Um, there's a tributary that comes in that they had tiger trout in that have got in. So there are some tiger trout in it from here and there.
oh, cool.
And then higher up, there's rainbows, and you can even get into some brook trout and some grayling higher
Oh,
towards
wow.
the headwaters. So it's pretty diverse.
Talk to me about grayling because from my understanding, I always hear about grayling in Alaska. Do they need like a certain water temperature, structure? What do grayling need to have a habitat?
So most of our grayling here are up in the high Uintas. So our Uintas is basically it's our big mountain range that we've got. That's a national forest. It's where the mountain goat, a lot of moose and stuff like that are. So they do need kind of a colder temperature water. The places I've caught them most of the time are in the high mountain lakes. So that's where I've had my most success with grayling here. I've caught them there, and I've caught them in the tributaries or the headwaters coming into the lakes. So that's most of the time where I get my grayling are very high up in the Uintas.
That's cool. And how long have you been guiding for?
I don't guide, so
Okay.
I've got guys that guide for me. So
Okay.
so I'm really busy with the 4-year-old, and I coach youth soccer as well. So I don't necessarily have the time to guide. So I actually have there's a guy named Jeff Hughes that's on my pro staff
I saw
that
that. Yeah.
so he guides, and then a guy JJ Miller, he guides as well on both the Provo and the Weber. Jeff kind of does more of a lessons, so he goes in and screens the river and kind of shows you the aquatic life,
That's
stuff
cool.
like that. He'll, teaches you how to read water, so that way you don't ever have to use him again. JJ actually he subcontracts with a couple other outfitters around here. And then my buddy Lamont Carter, who's actually the co-founder of my company, is a guide up in Dillon, Montana, and he actually guides on the Ruby, the Big Hole, the Beaverhead, the Jefferson, and the Madison.
Wow. That's cool. So yeah, tell us about your company. How did that come up? Like, what was the idea, and how did it kind of all come together?
Well, um, I was working in Cabela's at the fly fishing department, and my buddy Lamont Carter and I, so we went to, we had this idea of, hey, we love fly fishing. We want to kind of get into the industry a little bit better, get kind of more of a side hustle. So we're trying to figure out what resonates with us, what we could do. Do we have a product? Do we have this? And kind of we sat down and kind of came with this mission statement that we've got. We have basically, we're the type of people that aren't necessarily in fly fishing for just the fish, right? We're more about the adventure that you go on. We're more about the outdoor nature. We're about sharing the experience. So there's a lot of people that I worked in Cabela's, I worked in a fly shop up here north as well. And there's a lot of people that go to the same half mile of river every single weekend, and we try to get them to kind of branch out a little bit, um, and go enjoy the adventure. So it's the mission statement of the company basically is the adventure you're on, the people you're with, and the memories you make. That's what fishing is about. It's not just going and catching fish. So it's experiencing different things. It's going out and catching new species. It's putting rubber to the road and going to a different river that you've never been on and just trying to figure out what they're biting on and what's in that river. And it's a little bit more rewarding.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm the same way. Like, I'm not just, I mean, I don't just spay fly fish, but I mean, that's primarily what I focus on. We just have a lot of bigger rivers out here up in Washington. Um, but yeah, for me, it's all about just like the adventure. And, I mean, you go 2, 3 years spay fishing, not catching a steelhead, you can definitely say you're not in it to catch the fish.
Right.
You're in it for more of the adventure.
Yeah, and in again, in the divided times that we're kind of in right now, like we're kind of hoping to unite people around that common goal that all of us have of the outdoors, the enjoyment of it. And we're just all about getting people outside,
I love it.
and trying to say, hey, let's get outside, let's share our love, let's share our adventure, our sense of adventure. And you could have one person that's politically one way, one person politically the other way, but when you meet on the river, politics don't matter. It's all about looking around you and enjoying yourself. That's something we can all unite around is the beauty of nature. And I'm a big trout guy, and trout don't live in ugly places.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. And that's one of the things I love to hear the story of people is like what the river and the outdoors does for them. Because I've talked to some people that have gone through child custody battles and that how fishing has been an outlet. Yeah, how people have gone through that. And I talked to one of my buddies. He's a gear guy, but I was like, dude, I don't care. Hop on the raft. That's why I got a 2-person raft to bring other people. And he was opening up to me about a story where, and I shared this before, that where he put a bullet in the chamber and pulled the hammer back so it hit that bullet, and he put it to his head and pulled the trigger. And the I'm not a gun guy, so for all you gun people out there, I apologize for butchering the terms here, but the hammer hit the pin of the bullet and pierced it, but it never went off.
It didn't go off.
Yeah. And I
Huh.
was like, dude, so to your point, people, no matter what it is we're doing in life, politics of this side to that side, we all get to the river, we get to the outdoors, and it doesn't matter. It's like we
Yeah.
don't see color, we don't see drama, we don't see any of it. And I love that about you, as you were saying in the beginning, like you're out helping a buddy today to go scope out a river. And you guys are quote unquote competitors, but you're
Yeah.
friends, but you're helping them because you want to see them succeed as well.
Yeah, I've got like I told you earlier, I've got other buddies that have kind of clothing companies as well. My buddy Dave Duncan has Honey Fly, which is more of a Utah-based company, and then my buddy Trent has he calls it Hatchet Designs, and he does a lot of retro themed stickers. You know, he's got stuff that's got like the DeLorean from Back to the
Oh,
Future
cool.
with a rod tube on it, right? You know, he's
Nice.
stuff like that. You know, he's got funny pop culture stickers.
I like
And
that.
again, I'm again like they're in direct competition with me, but
Yeah.
they're fantastic people. They make a great product, and I'm going to help them out as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, I love the saying. I don't know who said it, but I've heard it around, the entrepreneur world is that rising tides raise all ships. And that's how I look at the fly fishing community. I mean, we're not going to be naive. There's bad apples in every bunch, but for the most people that I've been around in the community, I've been blessed and fortunate enough to, run into people like you and other people in the industry there. And I got to say, man, I love your guys' hats, man. Those are sharp, like the one you have on right there. But I was looking through your guys' store, and one of the hats I like, I wrote it down here. I like the Montana hat, that blue.
Mhm.
That's a different look. I like that. Something different.
Yeah, so that was actually because of Lamont. So Lamont was down here in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
So Lamont's kind of dream in life was to be a fly fishing guide. Um, and so he did some guiding down here in Utah, but he's like, you know what? He's like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this full time at a place where I can. And so he ended up moving to Montana, right? You know, one of the meccas of fly fishing.
Yeah, right.
And so he moved to uh, is it Flathead?
That
What's
sounds
the
familiar.
river? Basically the river that he'd guide was the Flathead. So it had three forks, you know, North Fork, South Fork, and Middle Fork, right? So we went up there one day to go visit him, and we were going for West Slope cutthroat trout, and he basically guides right on the base of Glacier National Forest. And I was just in awe with the color of the water up there, and how gorgeous it was. And and so then Lamont moved down to Dillon, Montana, and I've got stickers that have the that same design, but it's got a brown trout in
Oh,
the brown trout pattern in the state of Montana, because Lamont is a massive brown trout brain. I mean, the guy just slays brown trout right and left. Um, and so I kind of made that to kind of honor like Lamont making his journey up there.
that's cool.
Um, and so, you know, there's a couple guys that have some in the RL Winston factory up there, because he works there painting rods and sanding them and stuff during the off season when he
Oh,
guides.
cool.
So that was really cool. I got a private tour up there when I went up there in January. I got a nice little private tour of the RL Winston factory, and I met some cool people out of that factory up there.
Nice. That's not a bad rod company to get a tour from.
No, no, not at all.
Yeah, I've casted one of their rods at a spay-orama we had here. And
Mhm.
again, I'm only 3 years into this, but I was like, holy cow, man, I see where they mean you get what you pay for.
You do.
Those, yeah, they are outstanding rods.
Yeah, so I fish. I Most of my rods are sage rods. I've got four. And I was messing with one of my buddy's rods one day, and I was telling him to mend, and he's like, "I'm trying." And I took his rod from him, handed mine, and he grabbed it and just went like that. And sure enough, he threw a big mend in it, and he's like, "Holy crap!" And I was like, "Yeah, you get what you pay for in this industry, buddy."
Yeah.
I was like, "It's."
Yeah, I got a good buddy of mine, David, that lives out in here in Oregon, and he's been helping me with my casting. We do it virtual
Mhm.
video there, and yeah, he is. When it comes to spay rods, that guy can literally, no joke, like he can hear what your rod's doing in the line, and he can tell you like what's going on. And we were having a conversation of how I'm totally drawing a blank on the name of the rod, but that guy knows rods and he knows lines, and he's helped a lot of people out to get set up because it can be super frustrating trying to dial that in.
It was the first time I ever did a spay rod was my buddy John and I went up to went up on the Salmon River to just try to see if we could even locate where the steelhead were.
Mm-hmm.
Basically between Salmon and Chalice. And we were up there, and he got a spay rod, and this, the Salmon River is pretty big. And I was like, I've never tried one of those things. And he's like, yeah, you got to throw this D loop in it, and then you've got to.
Yeah.
And I took this thing and I shot it, and I was like, I was surprised at how far that thing could fly. And what the people are doing now with those is, have you ever heard of Pyramid Lake?
Yes.
So, Pyramid Lake has those giant Lahontan cutthroat trouts on them.
Mm.
Best thing to fish at Pyramid Lake off those ladders is with either a switch or a spay rod. So a lot of people are going to that instead of a conventional fly rod. A lot of people are fishing spay and fishing switch, that they can get that line a little bit farther to that shelf that those Lahontans cruise.
Yeah, the thing that really attracted me to the spay game was, I always tell people it's poetry without words, is what I think of it. It's just so beautiful. But again, I mean, again, some of our rivers that are out here, you got a lot of the bank that's like right there, and you don't have that room to cast. So in, a standard D loop with just like, if you're using like a 7 weight and you overline it by 1 weight and you throw a 8 weight weight forward floating line or whatever, you still are only allowed to go do so much within that rod because of the way it's engineered and it's built. But even if you just get a switch rod from there, like a nice, 11-7, 7 weight, whatever, you can just make a simple D loop and it's going to go out a lot further from there. And I like that idea of it. And, you can indicator fish with it. You can swing flies with it. They're very versatile, especially if you get these smaller rods like the switch rods there. So they're definitely a right tool, right place.
Yeah, for sure. And it's amazing the distance you can get with them. Just, it's almost effortless. It's so, like, when you go to Pyramid, you're trying to get that far and you're going back and forth, and at the end of the day, your shoulder's about to fall off, right?
I
But
bet.
with those switch and those spays, it's almost effortless how the distance you can get with them.
Yeah, and again, I'm no expert at lines, and again, I'm still getting my casting dialed in. But from what I've heard and read from people is that shout out to OPST, their commando headlines, which are designed for short rods, are really designed for that right there in those short quarter places where you got to literally keep everything in a phone booth, and you're able to get the line out there a lot easier. What was the spay rod that setup you used? Do you remember?
He had, it was a Reddington rod. I don't
Nice.
remember which one it was. And then he had the switch chucker line from Rio on it.
Yep.
And so that's what he was running on it.
Nice. Yeah, I like those a lot. That was my first rod, was a switch rod. And I went to my local fly shop and they're like, "You want a switch rod?" And I was like, "Is that not right? Is that not what you call them?" And they were like, "No, no, 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 that they're switch rods." And I go, "What am I missing then?" And
Right.
I was like, "I'm brand new." And they're like, "No, no, you're not missing anything. It's just we find most people that come in with a switch rod, they eventually get a spay rod, And I was like, price wise, I was like, "Nah, I'll just do this switch rod thing, and I'll go into it there." A week later, I came back. I was like, "Hey, can I get one of those spay rod things?" I was like, "Okay, cool. That's funny." I see you guys do on your guys's website. I read you guys do some bass fishing.
Yeah, so I've got some guys like my buddy Paul Aronson. He's a massive smallmouth guy. Trent Smith and Brandon, those guys are really big bass and walleye guys.
Walleye, okay.
Yeah, so we've got a lake here called Willard Bay that has some pretty big walleye in it. And in the spring, those walleye come in to the inlet to kind of spawn,
Okay.
and you can catch a lot of big walleye out of that Willard Bay.
Oh wow. And you guys are using fly rods for this?
So I've gone with them, and I throw my fly rod. I throw my 7 weight. They do some conventional stuff and some fly rod stuff as well. So
Okay,
it depends. They fish a local river here. They kind of try and keep it hush hush because
sure.
it's
Yeah, we don't need to say names.
yeah, they
Yeah,
so I know which river they are, but they probably crucify me if I
yeah,
told
yeah, yeah. I
where
want to
they
be
were.
respectful of that.
That's it's their spot, right? If it's mine, I'd tell you where it is, but this is theirs.
I'm the same
And
way.
and there's some logs with like big back eddies
Yep.
with and I asked them, I was like, you think I could throw, a streamer in there and strip it through? And they're like, there's a whole bunch of logs at the bottom of this thing. And they're like, if you're willing to go lose, six or $7 streamers, you can maybe hook up to one, but so when they're in specific situations like that, they'll go in and throw conventional for those walleye.
Makes sense. Yeah, again, I mean, the rods are just a tool, right?
Yeah.
People get so hung up on, the bait fishing and gear and fly, and I'm just like, like a lot of people think because of my handle name is Spay Rod Adventures that that's all I do is spay.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, no, I do all things, fly fishing, single hand, spay rod. I haven't done the whole center pin thing yet because just my opinion, I think it's the same as indicator fishing, but
Yeah. So
I don't want to get crucified for that.
well, no, I mean, so like the guys that are on my pro staff are very versatile and diverse of what they can do. They're not just a lot of them are specific fly fishermen, and a lot of them are fishermen. Like I've got guys that love, like Paul, Zach, Ethan. They're very good ice fishermen. Um, and so they've got all. I mean, Zach has all these. He's got Panoptics and all this great Garmin stuff that you can like see. I mean, the dude was nailing massive Lakers here a week ago ice fishing. They go out and they hunt largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, trout. They catch some pretty big cutthroat here on two different lakes on Strawberry Reservoir. Is one of them. It's known for kind of a big cutthroat fishery. So they go and kind of target that. So they kind of help me relate to all sorts of different kinds of fishing. Me myself, I love fly fishing. I started fly fishing when I was, I mean, 13, 12 years old with my dad. And I've done some conventional here and there. It was funny. I was fishing with some guys from the fly shop up north here, and we were at Willard Bay trying to catch wipers.
What are those?
So it's a mix. Uh, a hybrid between a white bass and a striped bass.
Oh, striped bass are pretty tough fish.
Yeah. So we were trying to catch some wipers. It was pretty bad wind, and so I'm out there with my fly rod, just like trying to chuck it into the wind. And one of my buddies from the fly shop is sitting there with he's got this G Loomis rod, and you can feel everything just twitching in this rod. I was like amazed by the sensitivity.
Fly rod or conventional?
Oh, it was a conventional
Okay.
spinning rod. And
Yeah.
then, I was putting some stuff away, and he says, "Hey, can you do me a favor and hold on to this for me?" And he hands me the rod, and all of a sudden it just starts going like that. And I was like, "You have a fish on this." He's like, "Well, reel it in." And so I start reeling it in, and he pulls out his phone and starts filming me. And he's
Uh-huh.
like, "I'm gonna blackmail you with this because 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 I was known to basically just fly fish. It's like I went with them up to Bear Lake and trying to catch lake trout, and I was throwing a fly rod all day,
Mhm.
with some conventional guys, and I ended up that was a goal of mine to get a lake trout on a fly rod, and I ended up doing it last year.
Nice. Congrats.
So that was pretty cool.
So you said you started fly fishing at a young age. Did you grow up in Utah or where are you from?
No, so I grew up in southern New Mexico.
Oh,
So my dad's father was in the military, and so my dad kind of bounced all over the place. And when my dad was about 18 or 19, he actually worked on a fire service tower in Yellowstone National Park.
Mm.
So my dad got into fly fishing at, 18, 19 years old and stuff like that. So when I was younger, I my dad kind of passed that passion on to me, and we'd go into the Gila in southern New Mexico. And they've got a trout down there called a Gila trout that's kind of a very yellow color, pretty small because the rivers aren't very big in the Gila. And they're very susceptible to wildfires down there.
Mm.
I kind of grew up going in kind of into a town called Ruidoso, which it was east of us, and then the Gila, which was west of us. So I caught trout in those general areas. So my dad kind of brought me up um, doing doing fly fishing on these small streams. Well, in northern New Mexico, there's one of the top 25 trout streams in the country called the San Juan.
Yep.
It's below Navajo Dam, and I ended up meeting a good friend of mine who's actually on my pro staff as well through soccer, who has a cabin up on the San Juan, and he actually, I'd go up to the San Juan, and I'm trying to use all my small stream tactics on this massive river.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure it out, figure it out. And so finally he like told me, he's like, "Hey, you want me to take you up there? I got a drift boat. I got this. I'll show you what to do." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm in."
Yeah, right.
So my buddy Mike took me up there and took me wade fishing one day, and he's like, "Okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing." And I was in college at this point in time. And so he kind of showed me, I'm not used to fishing with a size 20 midge.
Yeah, right. That's tough.
you know I'm not used to fishing two flies on an indicator. I was mainly doing either a lot of sight fishing, I was doing a lot of dry fishing on small streams. And so Mike introduced me to more of the big rivers and kind of how to do that. And the biggest fish that I had caught up to that point in time was on the San Juan, and it just was eye opening, and it just hooked you even worse. And I started going, and more and more and more.
So the San Juan, bigger fish, bigger water, it sounds like.
So yeah, the San Juan is a tailwater, so it comes out of Navajo Dam. So the water is regulated, and it's about 40 degrees year round.
Okay.
I made the mistake one time because again, I'm in southern New Mexico, and I wet weight everything. I made the
Oh.
mistake one time going up there without waders and stepping in the river in the middle of
Oh.
summer. Well, I'm thinking it's the summer; it's got to
Yeah,
be
right.
warm. So it was like it just felt like needles were going into my calves.
Oh, I bet.
And so um so the water is regulated year round, and so what the San Juan's kind of known for is big midge hatches.
Mm.
So you've got I mean anywhere from 27, 28, 30-inch brown trout that are naturally reproducing
Wow.
there, that just sit there and munch on size 18, size 20 midges all day. And then they stock it with what's called the triploid trout, which is basically a sterile rainbow trout,
Okay.
so it can't reproduce.
Mm.
Um, so none of their calories go into reproduction. It all goes into growth. So you
Interesting.
can get some pretty fat footballs on that San Juan as well.
Bet.
Back when I was younger, the first half mile was catch and release. And then the next mile underneath it was one fish a day, 22 inches or over.
Mm.
Well, the state of New Mexico did something that I found fantastic, is they realized how many tourism dollars were coming into this place, and they said, let's make an investment into this. So they spent several $1 million and took some backhoes and stuff like that, went in and dug out some sandstone, put some giant boulders in there, and then they ended up going from the dam 5 miles down as all catch and release. So they turned it into a giant quality water. And since they did that, the fish size has gotten the numbers are still great, and the size has gotten even bigger. Um, so it was actually a really good thing that the state of New Mexico did to that. Um, and I make a trip there at least once or twice a year. And at the end of the day, my arm is tired from catching so many fat fish.
That's cool. So how do you fish for the fish there on that piece of water?
So what I do most of the time is I'll run 5X because on the San Juan they're pretty
Ooh,
educated.
5X, huh?
So I run 5X. So
Wow.
they're a little leader shy there.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll run a 9 foot 5X leader. I'll trim, about a foot of it off, and then I'll take some fluorocarbon and attach it to the monofilament leader. So then I'll take about a number 4 split shot and put it right above where that knot is. So then what I'll do from there is I'll run either a San Juan worm, a chamois leech, or a bunny leech, depending upon where I am on the river and what time of year it is. In the wintertime, I usually fish either a chamois leech or a bunny leech to a first fly. And then I'll put either like a small ice cream cone zebra midge or something like that off as a second fly on it. Um, in the summertime, I'll do a lot of just small like RS2 type midges. I'll just run like one emerger and one RS2, basically just two small size 20 zebra midges, basically
What
is
what's
what
an what's an RS2?
an RS2 is. Basically it's a midge. Basically all it is when you've got your hook, it's basically wrapped with either chocolate brown or chocolate gray, black, or olive
Okay.
thread, and then it's just basically got a little bit of hair coming off the back, and then it's just got some flash wings on it, and they're super tiny.
So if people wanted to look that up, they could look up RS Midge if they want to pick some
Yeah,
up.
so it'll you can look up RS2 midge and
RS2. Okay.
RS2 midge, yeah.
Okay.
So I'll run any. It's a massive midge river, and you'll even go on. You'll be sitting there on the water in the middle of winter, and then all of a sudden you'll see these giant patches about that big,
Wow.
just black floating down the river. And so a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take a Griffiths gnat as a
Hmm.
dry as an indicator, which basically mimics one of those clusters.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah. So basically a dry dropper setup.
Hmm.
And then if you're not doing a dry dropper setup, when you're using the two other flies, are you using an indicator?
Yeah.
What kind of indicators do you like to use? And what do you guys prefer?
Uh, Um, I've got a lot of buddies that use like the new Oros right now. I like the yarn indicators because I get a
Hmm.
little bit more sensitivity out of them.
Okay.
Um, so I'll see them turn a little bit. I'll see them just barely dip. So they're not as buoyant. I got to put gink or floating or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it on them.
Hmm.
But I get a little bit more sensitivity out of the yarn indicators when I fish.
Yeah, the yarn indicators, that's a skill set in its own. Like I'm lazy. Like I just throw on the big, the balloon thingamabobber on there.
Yep.
Not
So
like the
yeah,
giant 1 mil, but I like to use the ones that kind
yeah.
of mimic the foam in the columns.
Yeah, so you've got Oros, you've got thingamabobbers, you've got what are the ones with the screw top on them? I can't remember.
Yeah, I've seen those. I tried those out last time I was out at the Yakima River here in Washington, and I like those. They're
Yeah,
very efficient and practical.
it's interesting that something as an indicator has so many different applications. You've got the pinch indicators, and that's one thing that Oros did now is that basically it's got one side that basically your line runs right through the middle of it. With the other ones with the screw top, a lot of people would be like trying to screw the top on and drop the top in the
Yep,
river. And so
guilty.
so
Yeah,
that's one of the things that kind of Oros improved on over those. Because I used to have people all the time that would come in the shop and be like, I just need that,
yeah, right.
the lid to it. And so it's pretty neat, just kind of the innovation that things are going on. And but I've used the Oros, they're pretty good. But I personally I fish with the yarn one, just because I get a little bit more sensitivity out of it on these. And I fish with orange just because I'm getting old and I can see it better. If I see white, I'll lose it in the bubble line every once in a while. But I fish with basically an orange yarn indicator, and I seem to get a little bit more sensitivity out of it, and get quick hook sets. A lot of the smaller streams and stuff like that. Um, the the trout are very they just basically sip on stuff, so you don't get those hard takes every once in a while. So with that yarn indicator, those little sips, I'll see it just barely dip and boom. And a phrase that one of my buddies used to use is hook sets are always free. You know, you're
Yeah.
not so he's like, if you see it go, if you see it turn, set your hook. You didn't lose anything. You know, you
Yeah.
didn't lose money. Your hook set's free. You just throw it back up and get yourself another drift.
Yeah, that's true. So for listeners that are wondering what the heck's a thingamabobber and what are they talking about yarn indicators? Basically, an indicator, everybody, is it's basically a bobber is what it is, if we're being honest. So don't get hung up on that. You can go onto YouTube videos and type in indicator fly fishing and they'll give you a breakdown on that. Marcus, do you find that color matters as far as an indicator, like it'll spook fish or not spook fish?
Not really. So what's actually interesting is I've actually, I've actually had the thought to try and put a hook on the bottom of my yarn indicator before. I haven't done it because basically there's certain places where you can only run two flies, and if you put a hook on your
Yeah.
indicator has now become a fly, right? But there's lots of times where I'll be throwing in an orange indicator and I will literally have trout come up and hit my indicator. So, they think it's when you see that happen, it's like, okay, time to put on a grasshopper. They see that orange and they think it's the belly of some sort of insect. And so I've had trout come up and hit my indicator before.
That makes sense, yeah, because the profile of it, that's what I've heard when it comes to dry fly fishing is that trout will look at the profile, kind of, if you will, on a large scale, the same way a great white shark looks at, I hate to use the analogy, but like a surfer on a wetsuit. They get
Mhm.
mistaken for a seal because they see that silhouette looking up. And
Mhm.
that's the same way like fish will look at the silhouette of like you said, a hopper. They'll see like that yellow body belly part of the yarn and whatnot from there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that would be interesting to try putting a hook on a indicator that way.
Yeah. And it's interesting because if they hit my indicator, I know I'm getting a good drift, because that's kind of one of the main things about fly fishing that I kind of hold to me uh is it's not necessarily about a lot of people are all about the match the hatch, match the hatch, match the hatch, right?
Right.
And there's been times where I'm catching fish on stuff that looks nothing like a bug, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people it's more of 80% presentation, 20% fly selection, in my opinion.
No, 100% true.
I'm yeah, I'm no, again, I'm no like expert, but there's a guy that's one of the national champions of fly fishing, or world champions of fly fishing, that lives here in Utah.
Mm,
His name's Lance Egan.
okay.
Guy has all he ties all sorts of different patterns. I've never met the guy, but he's got all sorts of different patterns you know that everybody loves, right? Um, and there's one called the red dart.
I've heard of
And
that. Yeah.
this red dart looks like nothing in the river. It's literally just an attractor pattern. And I've caught more fish on that stupid fly than I know what to do with. This, is I've fished several at Lance's patterns. One of his patterns that I found that fishes everywhere in the entire country really good is the Frenchie. And all it is just a tungsten bead head, and it kind of looks kind of like a little zebra midge. But it's got like a collar on it. And this that I've caught fish from Montana all the way to New Mexico, straight up the Rocky Mountains in every state on that Frenchie.
Wow. That's funny. It reminds me of a story I heard of, you know who Ed Ward is, right?
Mhm.
So Ed Ward is he's a big deal out here in Washington State. He's kind of one of the grandfathers of the Spey community. He's kind of responsible for what we call the Skagit shooting heads from there.
Okay.
Back in the day, like I don't know the full story, so if anybody does, I apologize for butchering this, but they used to basically take lines and chop them in half, and that's how they started coming up with shooting heads, and then they got them manufactured into like Skagit heads or long belly heads from there. But I heard a story that we were talking about how do you have confidence in a fly? And someone told me they were like, yeah, Ed used to just put a piece of bunny fur at the end of his hook and make it a tail, and he used to catch fish all day long with that.
Yeah.
And I was like, it just comes down to what you have confidence with.
Yeah, and so what I talk to a lot of people about in fly shops and places like that are new, with their presentation, they say that they're going out and they're getting skunked, they're getting skunked, they're getting skunked. And I said, well, I said, how's your mending? How's your
Mm-hmm.
presentation? And they go, what's a mend?
That was
Right.
me when I started.
So that's the way I like to explain it to them is that basically if your line's a specific way, you're going to get drag on the line, and what you want is to make that fly look as natural as possible in that river. So if you've got bubbles, you've got sticks, you got rocks, you got food source, you got everything, moss floating down that river, and it's all going at a consistent pace. And if you've got drag and your fly is going faster or slower than everything else in the river, the trout are going to sit there and go, that doesn't belong here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that presentation of that and getting that natural drift and learning your feeding lanes, learning your bubble lines, learning, basically, if you're getting drag on your line, you're not going to be getting fish.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've been kind of like I grew up not grow well, I did grow up on Small Creek in California where I was born. And my dad taught me how to indicator fish and whatnot. And I'm noticing more and more now that people are really starting to hook up with steelhead out here in the Washington area on indicator um, presentations.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely like our season primarily out here goes from Memorial Day until February 15th. So all of our rivers are currently closed right now. We're waiting to see if one of the major rivers opens up. Everybody's kind of in limbo. But once our season opens back up, springtime, I definitely want to explore again the whole indicator realm of it because I enjoy it. And like you said, we used to do two flies and some of the rivers, we could do three flies from there.
Mhm.
And sure, it's a learning curve to cast that. You just got to have a big open loop to get it out there.
There's a lot of people that in Idaho that are starting to do that for steelhead as well. They're throwing stuff on a pretty large indicator.
Yep.
They basically, instead of just shooting it across and swinging it, they're throwing it up, letting it dead drift,
Oh.
and then swinging it. Um, I've my buddy John, who lives out in Elko now and is bombing out to Pyramid Lake as often as possible, which I'm really jealous of. Um, so John lives the motto and puts rubber to the road, and he was going to school at Gonzaga for a while, and he was right next to Idaho, and he was going into Idaho into like the Coeur d'Alene area, I think is where he was. Um, and everything that I know about a bull trout is they're very when they reach a specific size, they turn into a carnivorous fish. So they basically go from eating insects to basically eating other fish once they hit a specific size.
They're aggressive.
Yeah, and so, I've caught some pretty nice bull trout before, and they're probably one of my favorite things to fish for. And they hit hard and they hit
Yes.
fast, and you feel like you're snagged, and then all of a sudden your snag's taking line. I mean, they're powerful fish. And John's got a really big fish brain on him, and he's a very good stillwater fisherman. And so John ended up in that area, and he created what he calls a balanced bait fish.
Huh.
And so John actually dead drifts a bait fish pattern that sits horizontal, and he picked up some really nice bull trout dead drifting this balanced bait fish pattern.
Yeah, you're talking about bull trout. I have a very good friend of mine. I'm looking at a couple of flies here on my desk. I wanted to show you. His name's Jordan Young. He's out in the Cedro Woolley here in Washington, but he ties these right here. This is a smaller one, but he ties these bigger, and bull trout just love those patterns, man, like a sculpin like pattern. And I call him the bull trout king, man. That guy has got bull trout dialed in, and he's helped me get into a couple of bull trout.
The thing that I've noticed that kind of people tell me, and the thing that I've noticed for bull trout is white.
Hmm.
I my go-to bull trout pattern is a Kelly Gallup sex dungeon, white.
Okay.
And it's like they hit them hard, and they hit, it's like I was up on the one of the tributaries of the Salmon River up in Idaho, and I was stripping a white and olive bunny leech all day, and nothing. And I switched over to this white sex dungeon. And I mean, my third cast, I was like 1, 2, whack. And I mean, it just came out of the woodwork and nailed this sex dungeon.
Wow. How big of a fly would you say it is? 3, 4, 5 inches?
It's yeah, it's about a, I fish anywhere between a 6 inch and a 4 inch streamer on those.
That sounds about right. Yeah. And
So
are you using a single hand rod for them?
yeah, so I have I have a 7 weight Sage igniter
Okay.
with I've got the big nasty sink tip, which is now it used to be called the big nasty, and now it's called the Predator.
Yep.
So I use a heavy sink tip with those, and I just so Lamont actually taught me how to throw streamers. I've nymph dry, and Lamont's like, we need to get you into streamers. And Lamont and streamers are, I mean, the dude calls his shots. It's funny.
Nice.
We were sitting up on the Strawberry River up here in northern Utah, and he's got a go-to streamer, and he ties it on, and he's like, watch this. He's like, give me your rod. Ties it on, throws it. He goes, here he comes, boom. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me, right? And he goes, dude, I tell you, he's like, he just puts it in the right place, pulls it the right speed, and these fish just eat it up. And we caught some pretty big browns that day. And then the same thing, we were up in Star Valley fishing for Snake River cutthroat, and it was right at runoff, so we just went up there at the wrong time.
Mm.
And we were coming back, and I ended up hooking this really big cutthroat on a small creek, um, on a red dart, right?
Yep.
And so we had just been struggling all day, and he's like, you know what? He's like, I'm gonna switch to my streamer. Throws that streamer on, second cast fish, and I was like, he just calls his shots, and just I used to call him the streamer king of Utah because the dude would just call his shots. And but now he's in Montana, and
I feel so sorry for him, Montana.
yeah, I know, right? He gets to float down a river all day.
Yeah, right. What have you learned from him when it comes to streamer fishing that maybe other people can learn from your experience?
A lot of people just kind of blind cast them, right? So what I kind of learned from Lamont is again, you have to think of it as the same way you're looking at the bug, right? Fish are going to go for the easier meal. So Lamont taught me to target specific areas. And a lot of the times what you can do is you'll find kind of a fast run with a decent pool at the bottom. And so basically what he does, he'll cast that up and let it dead drift.
Hmm.
And then, as it's swinging, and then start popping it as it's starting to swing. And so basically now what that's doing is that's mimicking a smaller sculpin or smaller bait
Hmm.
fish that got caught in that fast run and wasn't able to handle the current. And now as it's getting down into the slower part, now it can come back to its senses, and now it's trying to basically start swimming, and they're seeing it's kind of struggling going down. They see it, and they just come in and take the easy meal.
So if we're looking at the river straight across, and we call that 12 o'clock, when you're talking about, just so viewers can kind of get this visually, and you're talking about casting upstream, so you're basically casting it like 10.
I'm casting about 10 o'clock into the fast current.
That's what I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm casting about 10 o'clock into the fast current, letting it kind of dead drift into it. And about where it gets 12 o'clock, you give it a pop. You give it a pop at 1 o'clock. And then at 2 o'clock, you start pop, pop, pop. And then all of a sudden, it's like every single bull trout that I've caught is on that exact technique. And it's on the third strip. I
Interesting.
don't know what it is. I let it dead drift. I let it swing a little bit, pop, pop, hook set on the third.
So when you get to like 12 o'clock and from 12 to 3 and you're popping, obviously the line's not going to be at that like nice taut 45. You're going to have some slack in the line, right?
Mhm. So you're getting basically what you're doing is you're giving it like a little twitch, and now when
Mhm.
it's starting to, and you're starting to tighten your line to where that way when it does hit it, you're on the strip, and so
I
you pull
gotcha.
a tight line to get a good hook set.
So it's kind of like a strip set then.
It is a strip set.
Interesting. That's cool. Yeah. Again, I'm bummed because I got to wait to try all this stuff out till May. But again, like I said, we do have a river open year round here on the Yakima. So I
Mhm.
plan on going over there probably in the next couple weeks. I do have a trip going down to Oregon though. So that'll be fun, to try to implement some of that stuff there. Yeah, it sounds like you guys have quite a diverse team of
Yep.
guides out there. Again, I was looking at your guys' website, and you have everybody from all walks of life there, and it seems like you guys are all very soccer oriented.
Yeah. I mean, so I grew up. I mean, I started playing soccer when I was 4 years old.
Hmm.
I ended up playing. I played on the 8-time New Mexico State champions. Ended up playing New Mexico State.
Wow.
Played professionally for 4 years in Albuquerque in New Mexico.
Oh, dang.
And I actually just went to a tournament in Vegas with a bunch of the guys that I play with. I played with in New Mexico for a little bit, and I'll actually be in Thailand the first week of June playing in the Senior World Cup. And I'm only 41, but apparently I'm a senior citizen now, according to soccer standards.
Yeah, right.
Um, and so it's similar to the fly fishing community. It's you know people are well known in it, and people, it's like somebody knows somebody that it's like the 7 ways to Kevin Bacon, but it's only like three people know. I had a friend of mine was like, hey, you know this guy, how did you know this guy? I was like, oh, I coached with him. He actually was he's the coach of the New Mexico Roadrunners, which are the professional indoor team down there.
Oh, cool.
And he's got to be in his 50s, and they were like injury ridden, and he stepped on the field and actually he scored a goal, and he's the oldest goal scorer in the league of all time.
Wow.
So, and he put some stuff up on Facebook, and somebody saw that I commented on it, and they called me. They're like, how do you know him?
That's
So
cool.
it's similar to the fly fishing community.
That's cool. So I know absolutely nothing about soccer. Like I could tell you goalie and forward, but outside of that, I don't know where they are on the field. What position do you play?
So I kind of in my younger years, I played outside midfield. So basically, because I was fast and had endurance, I basically would just sprint up and down the line all
Oh
day.
man.
And then because of that, in high school, the assistant coach's son was starting over me, even though I was one of the top 11 players in the state. And so I finally told my high school coach, I was like, hey, I said, I can play defense too. And we had a sophomore that was just getting smoked in the back. And so he's like, go in there. And so then I played outside defense. And it was actually beneficial that I played there because I could run even farther and faster there. So I was just bombing up and down the line all day long. So that's kind of I played outside mid, outside defense, and so now when I just play co-ed indoor, and I'm not my all the girls on my team tell me that I'm not allowed to go forward and come out of the back because every time we do, we get scored on. So,
Indoor soccer, that I did that a couple times when I was in high school with some friends, and that's a whole different ball game, man. That's fast pace.
the ball never goes out.
Yeah,
So
you're constantly moving.
yep.
That's cool. You guys partner with a couple of people that I looked at, and one of the ones that I was curious about is tell me about Fish for Garbage. What is that?
So, Fish for Garbage is actually pretty neat organization. It's a nonprofit organization. I met the guys about 4 years ago here in Utah, and what they do is they get sponsors and they do river cleanups.
For who? For what?
They do river cleanups.
Oh, okay.
So like they'll have one on the Weber River, the Ogden River, the Provo River. They'll have them at a reservoir. They had one in Wyoming. So they're starting to like kind of expand.
Nice.
Um, and so what they do is they wheel out a giant dumpster
Uh-huh.
to the river, and they get like Jimmy John's, I think, sponsored this last year, and then they do giveaways. And for every like bag of trash you bring back, they give you a ticket for some of these giveaways. So I know local fly shops basically donate to this. I've donated to it. Um, and Jimmy John's like fed everyone this year. And so they just wheel out a giant dumpster out there. And some of the stuff that comes out of these rivers is crazy. They pulled out mattresses, they pulled out tires, they pull out, those two-man saws that they used back in the Paul
Oh,
Bunyan.
yeah, yeah.
They pulled those out. The one thing that they find the most of
Mhm.
is flip-flops.
Oh, I bet.
So because what they do in the summertime here is they call it the tube hatch or the plastic hatch. They have a bunch of drunk people that float down the river on inner tubes, right? And
Yep.
they've got their flip-flops on. And so somebody bumps and it falls off. And and it's funny because some of these guys, they'll find these flip-flops and they'll tie popper flies with people's flip-flops.
Ah,
They'll take like a green flip-flop and put dots on it and put a hook through it, put little legs on it and make a frog popper out of it. And so I'm like, that's kind of cool. It's kind of a reduce, reuse, recycle.
yeah, that's one thing I noticed about fly tires is they're very good about um recycling material and
Mhm,
reusing stuff. Like I've heard people that'll pick up like those feather dusters and use the feathers on there to
mhm,
tie up some flies. And I was like, yeah, that's a good thing to do. Yeah, we have a
mhm.
section on our river in the summertime that's probably like I think it's about 2.5 or 3 mile stretch where people will enter tube and have their coolers behind them and float down from there. And I'm just like, boy, man, that's a slow float.
What's nice now is the fish have kind of acclimated to them because in the
Mm,
beginning they used to kind of get spooked by them. But the fish have kind of wised up. Have you ever heard of something called the San Juan Shuffle?
mm-mm.
Okay, so it's funny because you'll be standing in the water on the San Juan and you'll move,
Uh-huh.
right? And basically you start kicking up stuff off the bottom and you'll be
Uh,
standing there fishing and you're like, I'm not getting a bite, I'm not getting a bite. And you look down
got a big
and
cloud.
there's six 20-inch fish 3 feet from your feet, just
Oh,
munching off all the stuff that you're kicking up off the bottom.
oh, okay.
So basically, you'll be sitting there and fishing, and your buddy will go up and like cross the river, up above you, and then all of a sudden you get a fish, right? So they call it the San Juan Shuffle, and you're not supposed to do it, but people still do it. Uh,
Right.
Basically, it's chumming the water almost,
Pretty
right?
much.
I see it on I've seen it on the Green River where I'll be sitting there and fish are feeding on below what I'm doing. Um, but these fish have kind of wised up because so JJ actually tells people when the tubers come down, he goes, "What I want you to do is I want you to throw in right behind the tubers." And they're like, "Why?" And he's like, "Trust me, because some of these tubers will have their feet in the water and they'll
Oh,
be
they trudge
and they'll
it.
be kicking up, they'll be hitting rocks and kicking up stuff, and those fish will come in and just munch on what the tubers are kicking up. So JJ gets them to throw in right behind the tubers, and they're picking up fish off of what the tubers are kicking up.
That's funny. I like that. That's cool. I wanted to circle back real quick to the fish for garbage part there. Um, so when they're doing the garbage pickups there, I mean, obviously they're getting stuff on like the banks and the surface from there, but are they actually like trudging the bottom too to pick stuff up?
So basically a lot of people go out there as kind of a multi-purpose day, right? They go out there to clean the river and make a day of fishing out of it. So a lot of people take their waders.
Okay.
So what they do is I mean, like I said, people go in the river and they pull tires out of the river. Like I said, I've seen tires pulled out of the river. I've seen shopping carts. I've seen mattresses,
Hmm.
saws. I mean, there's tons of stuff that and it's a shame that people are. I don't know how those get there, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But there's always those people that weren't taught like you and I to leave it better than we found it.
Yeah.
And those kind of people kind of ruin it for the rest of us,
Mm.
and it's like that's one of the reasons that a lot of the Utah Stream Coalition is fighting for public to go into these private lands is so that way we've got more access to it, more fishable water. But as a landowner, I would understand of, hey, I pay the taxes on it. I'm the one that paid for it. And now some guy's coming in here with a worm container and his Doritos bag and his Bush Light and leaves that stuff all over my property and all over my river.
Yeah.
Right. The one person that hasn't been taught or doesn't care or something like that ruins it for the rest of us
Yeah.
that pick up trash as they go out.
Yep. Yeah. It's been something that's been on my heart the last like couple years, and I'm guilty of it because like I have a very small little Facebook fishing group page that I started last year, and I was like, hey, let's get together and do a river cleanup. I'm gonna be on the river this day. And
Mhm.
like I never pulled the trigger to do it, but I would love to get something together where it's like, for this fish for garbage campaign.
So the guys that run it, I mean, it's a nonprofit. The guys are great. The guys are super great, super friendly. And again, they go out and they find sponsors to do this, to set up, to do giveaways, to feed people, they do a very good job. They organize it. Um, and they do it on rivers, they do it on lakes,
Oh,
and
cool.
I think it's a fantastic organization. I can't say enough good things about the organization and the guys that are running it.
Yeah, I love that. Like this year, I told myself, I said, Paul, you said you were going to do this last year. If nothing else, you do it for yourself. I got a nice 2-person outcast striker raft where, I got plenty of room. I could load up, 3, 4 garbage bags if I found that much garbage, and then just, throw it in the back of the Subaru and go find a dumpster and dump it off from there.
Yeah, so what they do is they'll go to local fly shops and say, hey, this is the date we're doing it. Can you advertise it for us, right?
Hmm.
They've got their social medias and stuff like that,
Okay,
and
good.
they set their dates for the year, and they just kick it out there.
Nice. I like that.
Like they were talking about doing one in Oregon.
Yeah,
Um,
Oregon's got a lot of um, pristine rivers, I guess I could say, only from what I've heard of friends that live down there. I haven't experienced them, but I've seen the fish that they produce out of there in, Oregon and Washington, and, I'll throw California in there too. I mean, all the rivers, let's be fair, could all use that help.
and so they do a very good job. They set up the dumpsters. They go out that morning and they get everything organized, and they hand you the trash bags, and
Nice.
hundreds of people go out there and just and it's a shame that we can fill up. They do it every year,
Hmm.
and every year they fill up a dumpster or more. It overflows.
Wow.
And so, I mean, some stuff flies out of the bed of people's pickup trucks and
Oh
gets
yeah.
in there and stuff like
Accidents happen.
and but I mean, some of it you're like, how'd that mattress get in there?
Yeah, right. Yeah, especially like, I mean, I get the mattress, like if the river's over a bridge, people just
Uh-huh.
chuck it off and not care from there. Like there's there's one river I used to watch this kid on, not kid, he's a young guy now, but he scuba dives, treasure wise. And his home river is, I always butcher this, but it's the Chattanooga River. And he does like, he'll pick up the river in the bed of it, and he goes around to other areas, and some of the trash that he picks up out of the rivers, like, I mean, he'll find like cremations and, guns, and reports them to the police, and's worked locally with the police. He's just got a really good heart, and he does a lot of things for the water systems as far as keeping them clean, and he's been recognized by other organizations as kind of like a good steward of the land from there. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So he's got a big following, and I like the fact that he does some treasure stuff, and the fact that he's keeping the rivers and the waters clean from there, because he's doing us all a favor.
Yeah, and it's kind of something that I was brought up with by my dad. There was one time where I'd like drop something, and and as soon as it hit the ground, my dad looked at me, he's like, pick it up,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
and I was always taught the leave it better than you found it mentality with the outdoors, especially.
Yeah.
Um, and I have a buddy that's a big backpacker that says you only take pictures and
Mhm.
only leave footprints.
Yeah, I was trying to think of that saying. Yeah.
You know, um, and so and what's interesting is I don't know whether it's us as Americans and our culture or what it is, but I was in Switzerland.
Mm,
Uh, it's got to be like 5 years ago, and it's Switzerland is probably one of the most pristine and beautiful places that I've ever been in my entire life.
I've heard that.
Just the watercolor, the mountains, the
Yeah.
everything about Switzerland was gorgeous.
Mm,
And I figured out why. And I think it's because they were raised in a specific culture. And I part of it I think is they're required to do 2 years of military service, and
mm,
every person is given a gun. And so they kind of understand, this is your country, this is your home, like take care of it.
yeah.
Right. And so I was sitting there watching Europeans are big smokers,
Okay.
and so that's why everybody in Italy is so skinny, is because they walk everywhere and they smoke. And so I'm sitting there at this bus stop watching this guy smoke a cigarette. And then he gets up, walks across a road and across a parking lot and throws his cigarette butt away into a trash can.
Wow.
And it just like it hit me. I was like,
Culture shock.
anywhere in this country, people would just be like, boom, and just chuck the cigarette butt and
Yeah.
hope for the best. But this guy walked across a parking lot and a street just to throw away a cigarette butt. And I'm sitting there going, I think that's one of the reasons why this country is so beautiful, is because people care about it. People care about the land, and it's just ingrained in their culture of, this is ours, take care of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about some of the travel you've done.
Oh, geez. um, so what was it? A year or two ago, I held fishing licenses in 8 different states.
Oh, wow.
So New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana. I think
Okay.
are the states that they were, right? And a lot of it comes down to I'm a massive native trout buff, and kind of growing up catching Gila trout down in southern New Mexico. Uh, and there's a nonprofit organization that called Western Native Trout Initiative.
Okay.
There's a guy up here in Logan, Utah, named Tyler Coleman, that does a lot of their social media, their marketing, is doing internships and stuff with them. And the Western Native Trout Initiative put out this thing called the Western Native Trout Challenge.
Mm.
Um, and I think I was like the 35th person in the country to complete the first level of it.
Oh, wow.
There's three different levels of it. And so you have to catch the native fish in its native range.
Okay.
So like so up in so up on the Green River below Fontenelle Dam, they've got three different species of cutthroat below that dam.
Oh, wow.
You've got Snake River cutthroat, Bonneville cut or Colorado River cutthroat, and Bear River cutthroat below that dam. Well, the Green River runs into the Colorado River, so the only one that is technically native to that drainage is the Colorado River cutthroat.
Okay.
Um, and so like you've got the Rio Grande cutthroat, the Bonneville cutthroat, the Colorado cutthroat, Snake River, Yellowstone, I'm West Slope. I mean, I can go on and on and on
Yeah.
about how many cutthroat species there are. Um, but what you do is you pay $25, and the first level is catching 6 different species in 4 different states.
Okay.
Then they go to the second level, which is 12 different species in 8 different states.
Mm.
And then the master level is 18 species in 12 states.
Wow. What are those 12 states?
So it goes New Mexico north to Montana. So New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, California, um, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska.
Oh, wow. Okay. All over.
So so that kind of gave me a little bit of motivation as well, and kind of rung true to our mission statement of get out and go on the adventures.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, like Alaska has the Arctic char, which is, Arctic char and Dolly Varden or, bucket list fish for me. Um, you've got like West Slopes in Montana. You've got bull trout in Idaho. You've got Apache trout down in Arizona.
Mm.
And, even in California, you've got like 3 different you've got 3 different species of like of trout down in like where the sequoias are, right up like a little bit north of Bakersfield. You got like the Kern River rainbow. You've got the little Kern golden trout, and then the
Mhm.
California golden trout, all in this little subspecies or sub area. Um, and then what's really neat is these guys have done a lot of help with stream restorations and stuff like that with all the money raised
Oh, that's
from the
cool.
challenge,
I like
right?
that.
And so it's really neat to hear these success stories of these native trout. So like the Lahontan cutthroat, right? They thought at one point in time this Lahontan cutthroat was extinct.
Mm.
Well, turns out what they did was back in the day, the railroad workers would take trout and kind of plant them in these little mountain streams. So that way, when they'd come through, they'd have something that they could catch and eat, right? If necessary.
Right.
Well, basically on the border of Nevada and Utah, they found they thought the Lahontan cutthroat was extinct, and they found those in a mountain stream on this guy's property, and they basically built the Department of Game and Fish came in and built him 3 holding ponds, and then they
Wow.
started breeding them, and then
Mm.
they put them out in Pyramid Lake, and these things get to be 20 something pound, 30-inch fish. They're massive.
That's crazy. Yeah, all the different the species and everything that they have there, you definitely have to fine tune what you're doing. Out of all the states you've been in to fish, what's been your favorite state to go fish at?
Oh, geez. um, it's hard, right? Because every state and every water has its own unique beauty and its own unique just draw to it,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of people ask me like, what's my favorite river? And I'm like, well, it depends on what I want to do. Like
Yeah.
I don't have a favorite. Do I want to go fish for do I want to go fish in the high mountains for completely untouched, unstocked cutthroat that have been there for hundreds of years, or thousands of years? Do I want to go, catch big rainbows? Do I want to go streamer fish for browns? What I'm trying to do. New Mexico definitely holds a really, holds my heart near and dear. I grew up there for 30 years. It's kind of where I cut my teeth with uh with fly fishing, and you can't beat the Mexican food there. No matter what Colorado says, and I don't care if I offend anyone, New Mexico green chili is the best thing that you can possibly have. So Colorado people claim that their green chili is better. No. Hatch green chili is the best food on the planet.
There you go, everybody. Marcus just cleared the air for you there, so everybody can get back to hugging and kissing each other.
There you go. So it's the I really I really like Idaho. I really like Wyoming, parts of Wyoming. I really liked Montana. Um, Nevada's got some interesting areas.
Mm.
I'm I'm ki- it's funny because I live in Utah, and Utah is not one of like my favorite places. What I really like about Utah is the diversity of the fish here. You know, I've got tiger trout, I've got four different species of cutthroat trout I can catch here. I've got brook trout, I've got grayling. They even stock some of the high mountain lakes with golden trout.
Oh,
So
cool.
I've got some of those before. Um, so I like the diversity here, but in you know the culture here I think needs to change a little bit. With the like I said, with the respecting of the resource. You know, a lot
Hmm.
of people, it's I'm part of a Utah fly fishing group and a Utah anglers report all on Facebook, like you were saying.
Hmm.
And it, people will catch a big fish and they're sitting there, holding it by the gills, saying that,
Ooh,
cat, release this guy, and there's blood rolling down it. And so,
yeah.
and everybody's the handling police, and everybody, cremates the dude for the way he handled it. But it's just, there needs to be a little bit more education here. And I think that the Department of Natural Resources needs to, they treat a lot of the rivers, they're mainly managed for agriculture
Yeah.
and not necessarily for wildlife and fisheries. So the fish here are great. I mean, I had a buddy pull out like a 26-inch brown out of the Weber River, and big old kype hook jaw on this thing. I mean, stunning fish. And the funny part is the river, they just shut the dam down one day, like right below where he got it. They just shut it down, and hundreds of fish just died. Um, there's a there's a ski resort that's getting put in here,
Mm.
and they actually put a massive pump in the middle of the river. And whoever it was approved the permit for this, and this ski resort diverted the river into like an irrigation ditch.
Mm.
They just pumped out the river, and so tons of like June suckers, whitefish, all this stuff was basically just littered dead on the river.
Wow.
And this one guy, Josh Bell, came in and he put it all over Instagram. He found it, and basically there was a depression where this pump was, and he just went in there with a big fish pond net and did a scoop, and he'd pull out 6 or 7 trophy fish just with one
Wow.
scoop out of this. And so he basically made like a whole bunch of treks back and forth to the river saving these fish.
Oh, good. Okay, okay. I thought they were dead.
No, so they were in this depression where this pump was, where
Oh, I understand. Okay.
right.
Yeah.
So he saved a lot of trophy fish, and it went super viral, and they had big meetings on it. And the
Good.
the resort company was very apologetic. They wanted to work with people,
Oh, good.
and they said, well, this stretch of the river that we own is going to be catch and release now, blah blah blah. Uh,
Right.
but I think it's because now it's going to be catch and release because they're going to be able to charge people to go on it, and they're going to make a profit off of it, right?
It always has to do with the money.
Yeah, but there's not many what I would consider a quality water here in Utah. Um, they have signs on the Weber River that says that all cutthroat must be immediately released back into the water, but they allow people to fish with worms in this stretch of river,
Hmm.
right? So these cutthroat, these browns, and we've caught fish with literally just monofilament coming out their rear end.
Wow.
And so basically, you're catching, when a when a cutthroat hits a worm, they're, first thing they're going to do is it's going to go into the back of their throat, and you're pulling your hook set deep into them. So now they should be able to digest that hook, but imagine if somebody took a hook into your esophagus, and how, how painful that would be, right? So
Yeah.
it's, again, right, the live bait debate is not good for having to release a fish.
Right.
So it's a little backwards here and there. But there's certain states that have kind of got their happy mediums, right? Which the people that want to use the live bait, the people that want to eat the fish, the people
Yep.
that want to use their fishing license for that purpose, they've got areas for them to do that,
That's smart. Yeah.
right? They stock it, right? It's like community ponds, whatever. They go in, and they stock they stock these section of rivers for people to take home fish. And then they've got your sections to where it's like, okay, this is where we're trying to bring in tourism dollars. This is where we're trying to manage for a trophy fishery, where it's artificial lures, single
Mhm.
barbless hook, thing like that, that basically help. Um, and it's funny because like the San Juan, I've got a buddy that lives up in Michigan that would fly down and fish the San Juan with us. 4 years ago, he caught this probably 24, 25-inch brown, and it had this big black spot on the side of it.
Huh.
Big black spot. Couldn't miss it, right? And it's probably a 3-inch spot. I mean, the thing's massive. And then I was coming back from my parents for Christmas, and I stopped at the San Juan, and this guy Jude, his Instagram handles Vida Trucha, which means trout life in Spanish.
Okay.
So he guides up there on the San Juan, and I went and saw him and met him, and we said our highs and our hugs and our hellos, and I mean, not 5 minutes before I saw him, that same trout that my buddy caught 4 years ago, the guy he was guiding caught, and it had grown by 4 inches and it got thicker.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
kind of so it was it's the I mean, you can't mistake that big black spot. I mean, I could text you those pictures and you'd be like, that is the same fish. And I've got the pictures of both guys holding the fish, and it's 4 years apart. And it's literally probably 50 yards apart from each other on where they caught, if that.
So they
So
caught the same fish?
they caught the exact same fish 4 years apart. So it
Wow.
the catch and release quality waters have kind of, it shows that the catch and release does work, and proper fish handling and stuff like that.
That's cool. Yeah, it's so funny like when you catch the same fish twice in one day.
Mhm.
I had a buddy of mine, Brian, he's a good friend of mine. We fished in California when I lived down there, and he lost his indicator setup and everything. He's like, that son of a that fish just took my gear. He's like, I'm getting it back. I'm like, what are you gonna go do? Go manhandle it? He's like, I'm gonna go catch it again. I'm like, whatever, dude. If you catch it again, I'll give you $5. Sure enough, like 10 minutes later, he caught the fish. I was like, no way. And I gave him the money right there. I was like, well done, sir.
It's funny, right? Because I've seen some trout are pretty, as much as we beat them up and talk about proper handling and stuff like that. It's weird how resilient they are. And I try and minimize the stress as much as I can, right? Um, I don't use gloves in the wintertime when I fish. As soon
Do,
as
do you use nitro gloves at all?
I don't.
No,
So
okay. See, I use those. My hands get cold, and
yeah.
I'm talking to a
So I'll wear the regular old like Sims fingerless gloves and stuff
yeah,
like that. I'll wear those, but as soon as I catch a fish, those come off and go in my pocket.
yeah.
And again, right? It comes down to the education of people, right? There's like one of the Department of Natural Resources did a study where they had a tailing glove and they grabbed this big brook trout and they put it in the water, and after 2 weeks it was growing this fungus on the tail from where the the cotton glove took off that mucus that's the first barrier in their immune system, right?
Mhm.
And I was just up in when I was up in Montana with Lamont. I mean, we ran into the same thing. We found people that were handling the fish with cotton gloves, and so we found fish that had fungus growing on them.
Interesting.
And so it's funny, on our Instagram, we put up a video on it, and it kind of went a little bit viral, and a lot of people shared it. Um, and then again, right, I have a lot of people that talk trash to me about it. The keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
Oh, this could have been from anything. But and I try in YouTube videos and Instagram videos and anything like that we try and do some sort of educational thing to help the resource. I always talk about, hey, like, wet your hands first if you're going to handle them without gloves. Like those nitro gloves are supposed to be basically already wet hands. It doesn't take the slime off of them.
Yeah.
Working in fly shops, people that would get the the cloth nets. So
Yeah.
go after those, and I'd be like, hey, like, are you gonna keep your fish? Or are you gonna do catch and release? Well, I'll probably release most of them. So then I'd go to those kind of plastic nets like Fish Pond has, like Rising has, like all those silicone plastic nets that help not take that slime off of the fish. So again, right, it just comes down to COVID basically put a whole bunch of people into this sport because they didn't have anything better to do.
Yeah.
Stuck at home and they wanted to get outside. And so, which is great, right? I mean, the more people enjoying the outdoors, but it comes down to, well, we want more responsible people, enjoying the outdoors. And so it just comes down to people getting educated with certain things. I've always talked about, you need a driver's license. You need a driver's license to drive a car. You need to take hunter safety to do hunting, right? I almost think that you should have to do a camping and fishing, a Saturday camping and fishing course that teaches you, how to put out your fire. So that way, how to responsibly not start a forest fire. If you're going to be doing this for specific fishing for catch and release, it basically educates you on certain things of that sort, and it's just a Saturday. And, as long as you do it, you can renew it every 10 years or whatever. And it just teaches people a little bit to be a little bit more responsible with some of the resources that we all love and enjoy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, honestly, that's what kind of, like I've lived in Washington for 25 years, and that's what kept me off the rivers for the longest time was because the rules and regulations, you need almost a degree to understand the rules. And
Yeah.
in Washington, they'll be interesting. Like sometimes they'll keep them like the river will be open, Monday through Friday, and you can only fish from this, but you can't fish from this, and it's this unmarked thing that they say like mile marker post of this, and you're like, I don't know what that is, where that is. So
Yeah.
Washington's actually, I don't want to butcher this, they made an app, it's called Fish Washington, and
Mhm.
it's super easy. You just pull it up, it'll show you the river you're at, or you can type in the river you want to go, and it'll show you a blue line, and you can click right on that line of the river, and it'll tell you the species that you're able to catch and the time of year you're able to catch it too. So it takes all the guesswork out,
Yeah.
and they're really good about posting like emergency closures or emergency opens. So if you ever come across Fish and Game and they're like, hey, what are you fishing for, you can confidently pull out your phone if you have service, or take a screenshot of it beforehand in case you'll run across them, and then you can just show them right there on the phone, and it takes all the guesswork and any type of conflict out of the picture there.
Yeah. So like Montana has specific rules and regulations about that kind of stuff too. Like in the wintertime, there's certain Montana's done a pretty decent job of managing their brown trout population because they don't stock, right? So certain times a year when the browns go to spawn, they shut down certain spots of the river, so the browns can spawn.
Yeah.
What they do is they have a thing that they call the hoot owl, which basically means you can't basically you can start in the morning, but everybody's got to be off the river by like 2 o'clock, where
Yeah.
it's the hottest part of the day. The water temperatures go up, the fish become lethargic, et cetera, right? Because the trout are the cold water species.
Mhm.
As soon as the water hits around 65, 70 degrees, right, they become a little bit more lethargic, and it's harder for them to recover from that fight.
Yeah.
Um, so Montana has rules like that as well.
I heard one of my good fishing buddies shared this with me, and I thought this was really interesting. He said that they being, the fish people, they did a study of trauma to fish, and the challenge that people were having is that, when they would release the fish, they were finding all these fish dead, and people were like, man, we're handling them respectfully, we're doing everything ethical, and we're with you guys. We don't understand why these fish are dying. So the biologists and scientists got involved, and they found what was happening is as people were bringing fish up, one, either people were dragging them up the bank and their heads are hitting the rocks, or, and I'm guilty of this too, or as you're fighting a fish, you're not having your net person, or you are not netting the fish in deep enough but yet shallow enough water where you can get them, and they're thrashing their heads on the rocks or on the bottoms, and then you release them, and then a couple days or weeks later they're finding these fish dead because of that.
Right. And it even comes down to length of your fight as well.
Yes.
That's when I fish with people, and most of the time I go fish with a buddy, is we usually stay close to each other and have what we call our net man, right?
Yeah.
Um, because if you're fighting a fish longer than 5 minutes, it's going to be pretty darn tired.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's when you go to release it, it's just like if somebody told you, hey, here's a track, sprint around it 4 times,
Yeah.
right? Go sprint a mile. At the end of it, you're going to sit there and you're going to flop.
Yeah.
Right? And so, having the they've got to burn the calories and deal with the fatigue that we do as well. And so a lot of people will sit there and just let them go, fight them for longer than 5 minutes. So that's why, a lot of the times I'll get a net man and be like, hey, here's the net. I've got a long handle net. It's a big net. Hey, I've got him close. Just walk out there and net him so we can, get him revived and, get him back, get our grip and grins and get him back in the water.
Yeah. And it's important. Again, I don't have much experience of, catching and handling fish, but the one thing that's always been instilled into me is always fish the fish, or fish the fish, face the fish upriver, so you're not backflowing their gills, and then just wait for them to kick off, and don't stroke them up and down up the river fast and aggressive, because that water is going to possibly go back through their gills and choke them out. But like you said, they are resilient. They travel many miles, but we need to just do our part and protect them the best we can, especially if we're catch and releasing. It's just like, it's like a friend, right? Hey, come back again. I want to see you.
I've seen fish with, bottom broken jaw off, and they're still, I've seen fish
Man.
with like eagle talon marks ripped up the side of it, and they're still eating. We were up on the Snake River in Idaho, and one literally looked like the letter Z. I mean, it was
Zero.
its back was broken or something, and
Oh man, I thought you meant like a scar.
I don't know what it was, but the fish literally was just in the letter Z. I can send you that picture too.
Yeah,
And I mean, they're still sitting there fighting and eating.
they're just so resilient, man. Yeah. Well, I want to wrap this up, but I want to ask you just a couple more questions here. You guys had on your site that you guys collaborate. Who do you guys collaborate, or what do you guys collaborate with?
What do you mean by?
I saw something on your guys' website where you guys do collaborations. Is that collaborations like with the partnerships you guys have, or do you guys partnership with like different communities in the in your guys' community?
Yeah, so like soccer, right? So like
Yeah.
there's soccer clubs here that do other things that they do, like they'll take kids out snowboarding, they'll take kids out fly fishing. So I've partnered with like a soccer club to help, teach kids to fly fish. Um it's like there's companies that we have affiliations with, like so like Yeti,
Yeah.
Yeti and stuff like that we have affiliate marketing with, that kind of helps keep us on the water. We've got a YouTube channel. And again, we're just about getting people on the water. So we trying to help people, hey, the San Juan, right? San Juan's not a secret. It's like, go fish the San Juan, it's a fantastic place. Here's kind of what you'll see there. Um, you know, um, Places like that. So we do things with specific, people, companies, partnerships with, like I said, with like soccer clubs or whoever else, like Fish with Garbage. We'll sit there, we'll donate to them, we'll advertise for them.
What do you
um
guys do with GoPro? I saw that as one of your guys' partners.
yeah, so GoPro I have an affiliate marketing with GoPro, so all my YouTube videos are filmed on a GoPro. And so GoPro's kind of starting to step up their game as well. GoPro started with, you had to have it in a waterproof housing, you had to do this, and now GoPro's everything, just basically comes waterproof housing. They've got, media attachments that you can have lights, you can have microphones, you can have this, you can have that, your chest mount, your head mount, your this, you can put it on a dog, you can put it on a drone, you can put, right. I mean, GoPro's starting to step up their game, and people are even using GoPros in the movies,
Yeah, it's
um,
true.
so basically, so all of the YouTube videos are shot on a GoPro. Um, and so every on our Instagram reels, basically Instagram doesn't like anything shot on a GoPro.
I noticed that. Yeah.
Anything with that, it shoots in landscape instead of the full
Hmm.
phone. And so anything with that black, it doesn't like. So, most of the reels now are shot on like an iPhone.
Hmm.
Um, but so basically what an affiliate marketer does is we go out and we kind of tell people, hey, like Sims, like this shirt that I'm wearing right now is the Sims cold weather shirt, right?
Yeah, it's a good looking shirt. I like
I've,
that.
I've got like 5 of these things, right? It's a flannel shirt with a thermal lining on it, and I was out on the river today in 11-degree weather, and I was
Nice.
wearing basically this, right? And I mean, I was fine. And so basically, like a lot of the products that we'll use, we basically advertise for them. And so if you click on the link from our partners page and you go, let's say, order something off of Sims, or order something from Yeti, or order something uh, from GoPro, right? So then basically what they do is they give us kind of like a kickback as
Mhm.
a referral, if you would, right? They're
Yeah.
like, oh, somebody saw that, somebody really liked the GoPro angle or what the GoPro does for these guys, or that Yeti water bottle. You can get it fully customized. You can get a logo on it, you know, uh, or that Sims shirt, right? Like I was just talking about, that, hey, let's go check it out. And they can, if you order it, basically what it does is from our website, it gives us a referral
Mhm.
to them, and then we get a kickback, which basically pays for our gas to go out and bring more content, or more play, like our YouTube, right? We tell people, hey, we're going to go hunt brook trout on this river today, this is where we're going to be, this is what we're using, stuff like that. And just kind of gives people a little bit more information, because that's what we're all about, is getting people into nature and getting people on out to enjoy the outdoors
Yeah.
responsibly.
How did you guys set that up with GoPro? Just reach out to them?
Yeah, so basically, like, what you do is if you go on the GoPro website, they've got an affiliate part program, if you would.
Hmm.
And so you have to go in, you apply for it.
Oh, okay.
So it has to do with, you've got your, they ask you, what's your Instagram, what's your website, what's your Facebook, what's your this, and depending upon, and they run kind of an analytic, and so what traffic you get to your website, Instagram, etc., then they'll approve you or say, you know,
Yeah.
yes, you know.
Yeah.
So there, there's been all sorts of different. I got turned down by Oakley because I fish with all my glasses are Oakley, and Oakley's turned me down. Um, but Garmin turned me down, and I was like, dude, all my pro staff uses Garmin fish finders,
Yeah. Right.
so it's like, um, but yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool little way just to get a little bit of gas money here and there to go on an adventure. We don't really make a whole lot off of it. Um, Most of the profit, or basically most of the revenue, comes from the apparel and stuff that we have on the website. So the stickers, the hats, the hoodies, the shirts, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get one of those hats, man. Like I said, I like that Montana hat. That thing's
Yeah.
pretty slick looking. I like that.
Yeah. So we do anybody that orders off the website, we do free shipping. We'll actually be at the Wasatch Fly Fishing Expo. I think it's the first weekend in April. So we'll be at the Wasatch Fly Fishing Expo.
Where's
Uh,
that at?
it's in Sandy, Utah.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be at that expo with two new hat designs and two new shirt designs this year that we'll be coming out with. Just they'll launch at that show.
Nice. That's cool. Well, before I let you go, is there anything you want to plug, websites or like upcoming events like you were just talking about right there?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, we'll be at the Wasatch Fly Fishing Expo. We'll have a booth there. It'll be a 10 by 20 booth, and that's where we'll launch our new products this year. Our Instagram is just at Roamandreel. And then the website is www.roamandreel.com. And so I what I like to do is, it's funny because a lot of people will contact me about a lot of the YouTube videos, and I've got a blog of certain places that we've been and stuff like that. And I always talk about fly fish, fly shop etiquette,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when I go into a fly shop and I say, "Hey, I'm trying to find a Colorado cutthroat, and I'm in Vail, like, where's my best bet?" A lot of people, will tell me where to go, and what I'll do is like, okay, well, I'll go buy a leader and
Mm-hmm.
5 flies from you as a thank you to keep those people on the water for
Yep.
giving me that information. That I pay for my information, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people will contact me with, hey, I saw, you guys were here. What did you use? Da da da. I want to ask you some questions about it. And I've had, and again, my phone's always on. I'm always open to help people. I'm all about getting people on the water. And most, the majority of the pro staff will help you as well. Um, if they've got time.
Yeah.
Lamont will be on the water. Lamont will be on the water, 7 days a week this summer. So
Wow.
he'll probably be up at 5, and as soon as he gets home, he'll have a Coors Light and fall asleep.
Right.
So if he doesn't respond to you, don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Um, but it's the fly shop etiquette. People want to reach out to me. I'm happy to give them information. I've got uh apparel and stuff in Angler's Den up here in Roy, Utah, on the San Juan, at Float and Fish, at Taos Fly Shop in New Mexico. So I've got apparel in different fly shops, and a lot of people will reach out to me and go into those fly shops, and they'll buy stuff, or they'll purchase something online as a thank you for
Mm-hmm.
giving me that information. Some people do, some people don't. I don't take it personally.
Yeah. Everybody just goes, they do what they can with what they got there. And I've always been
Yeah.
the same way. Like, again, the etiquette part, I mean, you can go in, I don't want people to walk away and think, oh man, I can't go ask a question in the fly shop. No, that's not what we're saying. We're just saying be respectful of it. If you're going in 5, 10 times asking questions and not buying anything, you might want to consider like, hey, these guys have helped me out. Let me, like you said, let me at least buy a leader and some flies or something.
Yeah, it keeps those people being able to fish. It keeps them, their job open, right? It's like they can
Mm-hmm.
hand out all the information, but their paychecks come from the merchandise sold in that store.
Yeah, it's all about sowing and reaping, right?
Yep.
Well, Marcus, don't go anywhere. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody and then we'll say our goodbyes. Well, everybody, I appreciate you tuning in to another episode. I hope you enjoyed this. If you got anything out of this, like, subscribe, leave a comment. I'll put the links in below for how you guys can find Marcus. Check out his apparel. Like I said, they got some cool apparel. I'm going to have to pick up that hat there. I like that. So, till next time, everybody, I will see you all later.